We started Culturally Speaking to indulge our curiosity about the way others live and a desire to inspire conversations about how we have far more in common than we realise.
Hey, how are you doing?
Better than last few days. I was severely jet lagged. I think now I understand why in, camps and when people get interrogated, they deprive you of sleep because it's not good.
I was going to say, for anyone, it's not obvious too. Janice is obviously not in London at the moment, but which I think this might be is this the first time we've ever recorded this way? We've certainly chatted. Yeah.
No, sorry, we did record when I was in quarantine a few months ago.
That's it. If anybody wants to check out that video, please do. It's like a full-on insight into what it actually is to be quarantined in a hotel for 2 weeks is something else. So yeah, no, you should definitely check that out. I'm also pretty tired, I have to say, because obviously time difference wise, it's very early here. But no, I'm glad we get to still speak and do this. So,
and before we start, I'm gonna give it a call out again, just because I think everybody needs to go watch this. But I've basically been bombarding Neha with, oh my god, have you seen this? Please watch this. And I've even screenshot scenes. So I'm talking about this TV series called Partner Track on Netflix. I think it must be available globally because I know some titles aren't, but it really called to me. This is about, you'd recognize the actress if you saw her, but she's not one of the kind of bigger names, but she's an Asian actress. And essentially she's in New York. She's, as the title suggests, on the partner track in her law firm. And it starts off as, really giving an insight as to how horrible it is to be in that industry. I'm so glad we're not in law because it sounds insane. And
we also know many people that are, so we can appreciate.
Yes, it's insanity. And basically, she's really hardworking. She's the classic Asian child of an overachiever, medals, awards, and everything at home. And then she's always been perfect. She tries really hard just to be perfect. And she's turning 30, so she really wants to become a junior partner at the law firm. And then obviously you throw in a bit of office politics, a bit of casual racism, as an issue in the office, throw in some romance. It was everything. And more than anything, it's not really the format isn't very new. It's a tried and tested formula of a heroine's journey. But the script I thought was really well written. It's really on point in terms of not sugarcoating some of the things that even you or I might experience, in similarly white male dominated industries. And also the backdrop of growing up with an Asian culture, all of that. It's just so good. I've already finished it.
So Janice literally told me about this week, and for people who know me well, I deactivated Netflix over the summer, which I do usually because we're out and about, weather's great, as great as it gets in the UK. So I don't typically watch a lot of TV anyway, and I haven't felt the need to reactivate my subscription because there's nothing I want to watch. But this particular show you have not stopped talking about. I'm just waiting for the temp to drop a bit and then maybe I'll watch.
Yeah, when it's cozy time. But I've just not underestimated and then got so impressed by a show in a while. Because I was looking for background stuff while I'm doing data crunching. I just wanted something for background watching, and then it wasn't background watching.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
So what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about holidays and traditions. And I have to say, in British culture, there's a lot of ones that are borrowed, there's a lot of ones that we've adopted from other places, but we've really tried to go back to maybe some of the more traditional celebrations or festivities that are marked, just because I think the international ones get a lot of coverage, and we've certainly talked about them plenty on previous seasons. And I would say season 1, we talked about a lot of other celebrations that in some way, shape or form we've experienced in the UK as well. You know, things like, I'll say it's very topical at the moment because it's the autumn, but you know, you can't move for want of seeing, certainly on social media, right, the preparations for Halloween, pumpkin spice season,
there's
the
literally, but not even Halloween, they're selling mince pies now.
Yes, indeed.
It's got earlier.
People are very contentious about whether you should be selling mince pies in October.
Well, typically, I always remembered Halloween to be the official, like, you know, finish line, and then it's, you know, free game for Christmas stuff. But I don't ever remember having Christmas things before Halloween happened.
No. Wow. Very interesting. So, I mean, Christmas is a great one. Obviously, the UK is still, although a secular country, has obviously strong Christian roots. I think the one thing that I always was, you know, was big on our calendar, I went to faith schools, as you know, growing up. So, you know, despite my faith personally, we actually were exposed to the Christian faith a lot during the school day and various festivities. But I remember you telling me that Lent was a thing that you, when you moved to the UK, you appreciated just how much people embrace it. Because I guess, was it not something that you did growing up, or did you also have a Christian exposure?
My school was also Christian in Hong Kong, and obviously we did Bible study, so I knew what Lent was, but I don't think, especially because my own family, we don't adhere to any particular religion. It's just not something I practiced.
Yeah, so Lent, for anyone who doesn't know, are the 40 days before Easter Sunday in the Christian calendar, and it does change. The date changes every year depending on when Easter falls. And essentially in those 40 days, many people will choose to either give up something or take up something. And I think traditionally this was always something that you were giving up that brought you pleasure. So a lot of people will give up things like chocolate or sweets.
Yeah.
I've heard of people giving up social media recently. But
just
equally,
what, is this just for the 40 days?
It is for the 40 days, yes.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be able to show you restraint, show, you know, an ability to resist temptation, because Jesus was tempted by Satan to worship him. And so it's supposed to be that kind of testing of oneself and one's resolve to commit to something. People also take things up. So some people might take up new habits. So it might be positive things like maybe volunteering your time, or I know some people that I, you know, I'm good friends with, where they actually choose to eat very, very simply for those 40 days and instead like dedicate time and effort and resource to providing for others and helping others in that time. So I remember as a child, again, I'm not a Christian, but we at school, we used to be challenged to give up something. And every day the teacher would ask if you'd kept your promise.
And what have you given up in the past?
So I don't actually eat a lot of chocolate at all, really. So that was
never something easy.
No, but you're supposed to challenge yourself. So I would try and give up savory things that I like. Yeah, that's quite hard for me.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah.
Because we don't have a sweet tooth. So
no.
You're left with what? Eating dust.
Or, you know, people, the other things I know people have tried to give up, like fizzy drinks or teas and coffees or things like that. Some people give up alcohol as adults.
That would
as well.
be a hard one if I had to give up tea, because that's the only thing I drink apart from water.
Which, I mean, you literally have your tea with you right now, don't you?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of it. But I mean, what happens before the 40 days is Pancake Day or Shrove Tuesday, which you're probably pretty familiar with. Normally, you'd always have pancakes on menus, restaurants, cafes, schools. Quite a big thing, I think, here. How you have your pancakes as well. Are you a lemon and sugar person? Do you like to go a bit of rogue?
What's in your
Again,
pancake?
I don't really eat pancakes, but I'd probably say a savoury pancake.
Same. I always go for, I mean, there is
spinach,
something.
bit of cheese.
There is something about, you know, when you're in like a Christmas market and you have, okay, I wouldn't get one at a Christmas market, but just setting the scene, you know, you get a freshly made French crepe and then with the lemon and sugar or the banana and Nutella, there is a time and a place for that. But usually when I make pancakes, so either I go full on sugar loading, so the Japanese type of really fluffy, thick a stack of it, or I go with, I put an egg in it, ham, cheese, mushrooms, and have a galette basically.
Love that. Yeah. I would be on that vibe. Also, have you ever been to IHOP? Sorry, sidebar.
No, I have not.
Okay.
Why?
Sorry, you said fluffy. No, you said fluffy pancakes, and I was like, oh. But I remember one of the first times I went to the States and going to an IHOP, and I couldn't quite fathom it. But anyway, so the reason you have Shrove Tuesday is because during Lent, really rich foods, so butter, eggs, milk, dairy products, essentially, sometimes meat, were banned. So what people tried to do was use up these ingredients because you didn't want them spoiling while they were sitting on the shelves. So hence pancakes, because those incorporate a lot of those ingredients. And following Shrove Tuesday is Ash Wednesday. And on Shrove Tuesday, the church will burn the palm wood crosses that were made the previous Easter, the previous year. And palms, obviously, famously, Jesus walked on palms and died on the cross. And so those ashes of the burnt crosses are used on Ash Wednesday. And Ash Wednesday, people, when they go to the church and there's a blessing, they are then blessed with the ash of those burnt crosses. So it's obviously there are religious connotations, but I think we've also commercialized it to the extent with Pancake Day, with things like Easter eggs, because eggs again being banned in the 40 days leading up to Easter Sunday. Holy Week is the week before Easter Sunday. And again, church leaders would say that because eggs couldn't be used in that week, instead of them being spoiled or ruined, they were painted and given to children. And that's then, hence, we ended up with Easter eggs. So yeah, there's a lot of, I think, tradition and symbolism in the lead up. Also, one of the things I'd say is, if you haven't checked out our first season, episode 2, I talk about Carnival, which in different parts of the world, that period and the run up to Easter and the 40 days Shrove Tuesday is actually celebrated by things like Mardi Gras, Carnival in Latin America, and their feasting days. So, in Mardi Gras, it's Fat Tuesday, it's Shrove Tuesday. So, yeah, there's different ways, but I think all of it really is about a massive celebration before a period of more austere, restrained times in the lead up to the resurrection of Christ at Easter. And I think the final thing I'd say on this is, I remember when I told you that Mothering Sunday was also linked within this period, and you were like, huh? Because I know you celebrate Mother's Day with the more international date in May, which is the Americanized date. So, and I always found that really funny because obviously in the UK we celebrate Mother's Day on a different day to the rest of the world. Mothering Sunday is the 4th Sunday of Lent traditionally. So again, it changes every year. And the tradition there is people would go to what they used to call their mothering church. And this is the church where you would be baptized. So you would travel back either, with your mother or go with your mum to the church and where you receive baptism. And that's how the name came about, which I think is a nice thing because it's the coming together of families. It's the returning of, where you came from to reinstate, I guess, bond.
What about in India? Like, is there a Mother's Day?
So I think now there is commercially because it's the same as the day in, what day is it in May?
I have no idea.
But it's May is the international. I think it's very early May. I believe that day is celebrated, but within religion and culture, no, we don't have Mother's Day and Father's Day. Like I said, commercially now, yes, we actually celebrate things like a day for our siblings, which is more prevalent.
I did know that,
Yeah, so rather than a specific day to honour mothers, also mothers are, they're considered goddesses. So you always honour your mother anyway, and your parents. Yeah, we don't have sort of a specific day just for it.
I think it's nice though. I like the sibling day thing.
Yeah, me too. Not least because obviously as a girl I get gifts, but no, it's very nice.
So I guess the next kind of big fun time in the UK is going to be summer. So I feel like I don't personally do all of the things I'm going to talk about, but it is pretty distinctive, isn't it? Like every year, it's summer when, for me, it's when the strawberries start tasting amazing. Because you can get strawberries nowadays throughout the year, which I don't agree with, but it's distinctly different when you start getting really good strawberries, summer's here.
British strawberries are the best in the world. I'm just going to go out there on a limb and say it. They actually are.
Have you seen, I think it's on Netflix now, there's a series where you've got Paul Hollywood going around Japan, and the whole series is very much based on bread because he is a bread person. But
sorry, I love how you said he's a baker. He's a bread person.
I just meant like he's just generally associated with bread mainly, rather than other types of cooking. I didn't like the show, but that's a separate conversation. There was one episode where he went to the strawberry farm, and I don't know if you've ever tried it or are aware of it. Strawberries in Japan can be so expensive. Like they put so much resources into growing like the perfect strawberry. I've not actually had like the most expensive kind. I've had, Korean and Korean and Japanese ones, and they taste different. It's how you would imagine a strawberry to actually taste like, if that makes sense. It's a very intense flavor, but I'm with you on the British strawberries in the summer. It's just, nothing like it. So following along with the food theme, I think barbecues are just such a thing. We always joke that literally if the sun came out for an hour, everyone's suddenly in their gardens having a barbecue.
Literally, you can't say it because of where I am, but that I have very limited outdoor space here, but I do have some, and without fail, we barbecue every single summer, come rain or shine.
Yeah, because I don't know, it's just an institution for us now. Unfortunately, I think a lot of parks don't allow for barbecues. So it's always quite hard for someone like me who lives in a flat to find. Basically, I have to piggyback on whoever has a garden and a barbecue and just go do it at theirs, which is actually better because I don't need to clean up. And I think something that I think we should do this coming summer is to go to one of the seaside destinations together. I know we've both been separately, but for people who don't know, there are 17 beaches in Kent. I've not been to all 17. I've been to, the typical ones, Margate, those ones, and they're lovely. And I think Cornwall, again, is a pretty hot destination, although it's miles away. I can't stress how long it takes to get to Cornwall.
You can fly.
You can, but if I'm getting on a plane, I'm going to a different country,
You basically are in a different country down there.
Yeah. And Cornwall is beautiful. For people who know me, I went to uni in the Southwest, and it's a different vibe entirely. But I have to say, if I really want to go for a beach holiday that's nearby, I'd pick somewhere like Menorca. Because the waters in the waters around this country are still too cold, in my opinion. So
yeah, they're never going to be like Mediterranean type balmy, are they?
So for people who've not been to a seaside place, even Southend, all of those lovely places, they all feel quite similar. They've got that boardwalk feel to them, with inevitably a pier that extends out, and you've got these stalls and game machines, and there's always gambling. I read apparently some places you get donkey rides. I've never done that in the UK. I have
Brighton
done a horse ride in Thailand, of all places, I remember. I think it wasn't quite a pony, but it also wasn't a huge horse, so it was okay. But what I found out only after I got on it was that it only understood Thai. So
yeah, obviously.
It was a rather hilarious situation, because I'm not a very experienced rider at all. And we were just kind of like walking along, and then suddenly it started galloping. And mind you, this was just on the beach, one of those touristy things. So it was bareback, and I was like, oh my God, I have no idea how to make it stop, because I said stop and it didn't do anything. And I didn't want to just pull on the rein in case it stood up. So I was just kind of holding on for dear life. And then randomly it decided to stop to drink some water from the ocean. And I was like, okay, I've seen videos of horses do that. I'm sure it's fine. And then the guy who was manning the whole thing, like, finally caught up with us, and it was okay. I was fine. The horse was fine. But
I think this is like I liked horse ride, but I think this is, I could have got visions of you looking fabulous. I might.
It was not elegant at all, apart from my hair being in the wind.
It wasn't like that Bond girl that rides on the beach. I think it's like Casino Royale, where she's like on the horse riding along on the beach, and then James Bond shows.
It was me in my bikini bottoms and like a cover-up t-shirt, but I was just in the sea, so my hair was a bit wet and my t-shirt was wet, and I was just like looking frightened, probably.
Okay.
Okay, so apart from that, fish and chips, obviously.
Of course. Do you know, I saw this article about the death of fish and chips in London, because obviously it's supposed to be a seaside thing, right? The fish being fresh. But they were saying, like, it's just so difficult to get good fish and chips in London.
I don't get fish and chips in London.
No, I don't ever.
No.
But by the sea, there is something about, just like...
It's the when in Rome kind of thing.
And it is good normally. The fish is fresh.
Bit of saveloy. Yeah. Have you ever had a saveloy before you became
pescatarian? No, but I'm not. No, I'm a purist.
Bit of saveloy is good. Do you want to explain to people what a saveloy?
No, because I can't.
It's just some nondescript sausage, but it's deep fried. It's battered and deep fried. Good though.
I mean, nearly everything is better deep fried, almost.
True. We had this conversation.
We did.
And cockles. Cockles and whelks.
Yes, cockles and whelks again, very British, like right?
So, okay, moving away from the ocean and the seaside, the biggest event, obviously Wimbledon.
Obviously, I thought you were going to talk about it when you said strawberries and cream because they go hand in hand.
I got sidetracked by food, sorry. But Wimbledon is something. So my first job was actually at IBM, and that was when they started, this whole partnership with, I think it's the speed of the serve, isn't it? But you always see the IBM thing there. And I remember there was a specific Wimbledon team that everybody would just do anything to get on. I never got on that team because I wasn't with the data side of things. But yeah, I recently picked up tennis. Although sadly, Neha does not play tennis.
Well, anyone who knows me really well will know that I have such bad hand-eye coordination, it's actually laughable. And try as I might to have played tennis over the years, it's just never been my forte. However, I'm a great spectator and I do go to Wimbledon.
I do really like it. It's just a whole thing.
I love Wimbledon. We should go.
Thing. We should. Yeah. Now that I actually play tennis, I just played like a couple hours ago. Yeah, we should definitely go. And I think when it comes to like sporting events, obviously there's the punting, although I feel like that's quite Oxbridge specific, like it's a very that area. And then the regatta
and Pimms,
the Headley, and Pimms is, do you know what, because I wasn't here this summer, I didn't have any Pimms this year. How shocking is that? Very.
I mean, listen, Pimms it's not a summer party without exactly.
It's our answer to sangria.
I feel bad saying that because it's a poor version of it, but yes. I had I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying, like, a member of my family came to the UK and he'd never had Pimms. And so we were like, we got him on the Pimms. And it was a revelation.
So it's lighter, so easy. Isn't it? It's lighter than a sangria.
It is. It's very easy to drink. Too easy, frankly.
It's all right. Summer is when day drinking is allowed. And actually, on the note of sangria, I know some restaurants offer white sangria, but I never made it ever myself until earlier this year, and it's a game changer. I much prefer it, actually. So another really big thing, so I'm gonna not go through, Halloween, all of that period, because it is what it is. But when I first came to the UK, I think, I got introduced to this thing about Remembrance Day because it's just not a thing that we observe in Hong Kong. So Remembrance Day, also known as Poppy Day, due to the tradition of wearing a poppy. Do you remember, like, for I think 2 to 3 years, we were trying to look for like a nicer poppy, and then we were shopping around for the poppy pins.
I got one. I have my pins. Yeah, I
Although
do.
I'm not around this year to wear it. But I do have a nicer one.
Is it too early to put it on?
I think so. I think usually maybe last week of October is okay.
Okay.
I usually just take cues from people around. Like if I start seeing people wear it, then take mine out. So this is a Memorial Day observed in Commonwealth member states. It has been observed since the end of the First World War to honor armed forces members who have died in the line of duty. Shout out to Line of Duty, the TV show, although it has nothing to do with this. Following a tradition inaugurated by King George V in 1918, the day is also marked by war remembrances in many non-Commonwealth countries. So in most countries, it's observed on the 11th of November to recall the end of First World War hostilities. they actually formally ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, in accordance with the armistice signed by representatives of Germany and the Allies, I guess, between 5:12 and 5:20 that morning. And actually here at the 11th hour refers to the passing of the 11th hour, or 11 a.m. So that's when it started. And the tradition of Remembrance Day evolved actually out of Armistice Day. The initial Armistice Day was observed at Buckingham Palace, where King George V hosted a banquet in honor of the President of the French Republic during the evening hours of 10th of November in 1919. The first official Armistice Day was subsequently held on the grounds of the palace the following morning. And during the Second World War, many countries actually changed the name of the holiday. Commonwealth nations usually just call it Remembrance Day, but in the US, it's Veterans Day. So, yeah, for me, I guess the only thing I do is the poppy and
silence. And there's always a minute's silence at 11 o'clock on the 11th of November to mark that.
Yeah, I will be there this year actually for that. I have 1 week where I can wear the poppy, so I will remember to take it out. So
there's a big service as well on Remembrance Sunday, so the Sunday closest to the 11th. There will be.
And this is going to be the first one without Queenie.
I was about to say it's a very big event in the calendar for the military, for obvious reasons, and the parade down the Mall, and then the laying of the wreaths at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. So every town in the UK has a Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, which is to, pay respects to those that died or had fallen in the line of service without, being known. And that's where the wreaths will be laid, normally by the monarch, so the king this year, other senior members of the royal family, the prime minister.
And the veterans come out, right?
They do indeed.
We don't have that many left, I think.
No. And there's always some stat about, the ones that are still with us, because they are getting few and far between.
Okay, so after Remembrance Day, again, we're not going to talk about Christmas, but I think we have to talk about New Year's Eve. Because for me, it's not actually that big a deal to me, because we've talked about this, right? Like, we don't do the New Year's resolutions, that kind of thing, but it is a massive thing for everybody else, it seems. And in my research, I found loads of very interesting ways people celebrate this in the UK. So obviously it's not a public holiday, but as you and I very well know, we usually get off at about 2 that day because everybody starts celebrating.
But New Year's Day is a public holiday. Yes. New Year's Eve, then typically, as you said, if it is a working day, people will finish maybe a little bit earlier.
Yeah. And, let's go through like the boring, what we usually see happen in London first, and then we'll go to different towns and cities in the UK. So we've got the fireworks, Big Ben strikes midnight, everybody sings Auld Lang Syn. Done, right? That, the champagne, whatever.
Do you know the words to Auld Lang Syn?
I think I do, actually, because we sing that at end of term every term at school. The end of term assembly.
I actually don't think I do know all the words to Auld Lang Syn. That's quite embarrassing, isn't it? I know the main bits.
For a song that is actually Scottish and that we don't sing a lot, I don't think it's embarrassing. Not worse than me not knowing all the words to the anthem.
Okay, that is embarrassing.
I know all the words to the Chinese anthem, though.
Okay, fine. As long as you know one, I feel like that's okay.
So let's go through some of the more interesting customs I found dotted all over the UK. So superstitions first. there's an old superstition in Scotland and some parts of the UK that the first person to enter someone's home on New Year's Day will bring all the luck for the coming year with them. And this is called first footing. And guess what? Dark-haired people are considered the luckiest of lucky, right? And it's traditional to carry a lump of coal when going first footing.
Yes, I do know this. I know about the coal.
Yeah. So if ever we're in the same country on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, we can be each other's first footers. I can provide coal. And another interesting superstition is found in Yorkshire, where people say black rabbits, black rabbits, black rabbits in the last few seconds of the old year, and then say white rabbits, white rabbits, white rabbits as their first utterance of the new year, which is supposed to bring good luck. Imagine saying that really quickly when really drunk.
That's quite funny. Oh wait, so instead of wishing people Happy New Year at the strike of midnight, you're supposed to say white rabbits, white rabbits, white rabbits.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, this reminded me, we do have an episode about New Year's Eve traditions in an earlier season. So if people haven't listened to it, go find it. It's there. It's more about other countries though. So coming back to this, there's another kind of superstition-based tradition, which is Welsh, called Calannig. I might be slaughtering the pronunciation. It is a tradition of New Year gift giving. So it literally translates to first day of the month, deriving from the Latin word calens. And actually, the word calendar shares the root in this word. A Calannig is an apple with, so I need you to imagine this now. It's an apple with 3 twig legs stuck with dried fruit. It's got cloves and then a spray of evergreen stuck on top. So people give this to each other, and you can put one on the windowsill or, you know, any shelf in your home, and it's supposed to bring luck to the home.
Oh.
I don't know how long for, because obviously the apple will die. So I didn't manage to find out how long it's meant to be there for. Now, let me tell you a little bit about, so not superstitions, but actual events that happen. So first we go to Northumberland, which I've never been to, but we've got the Allendale Tar Barrel Festival, where whiskey barrels filled with burning tar, which sounds like the worst idea ever, are balanced on the heads of barrel carriers called geysers and paraded around town.
No health and safety there then.
I know. As I go through some of these, you'll find that they are all fire related. So we've got a country of pyros, basically. So in Aberdeen, you've got the Stonehaven Fireball Festival, which is a parade of 60 kilt-clad marchers accompanied by pipes and drums, whirling 16-pound balls of fire on wire ropes around their heads. So go figure. Again, fire, kilt, probably no underwear.
Oh God, I didn't even make that connection until you said that.
Then we've got the Comrie Flambeau procession in Scotland, where 8 huge torches parade through the town and then thrown from a bridge into the River Erne, ridding the town of the year's evil spirits.
Right. Okay,
know,
so it's
right?
kind of
It's
out
all
with the
fire.
old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yorkshire now. I think we talked about the black rabbits thing, but they also have a fire-based festival called the Flamborough Fire Festival, which is a Viking tradition, stating that the air could be cleansed of the old year spirits with fire. So I guess this is why they're all fire-based, which is pretty common across different cultures, I think. You know, fire gets rid of bad things.
Yeah, it's the kind of that, as you said, the getting rid of the old energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last thing that I might be pronouncing this completely wrong, but I actually went on YouTube and tried to figure out how to pronounce this because it's a Welsh word. So it's Mari Lloyd. it's not spelled like this at all, guys. So I had to Google how to pronounce it. So it's a folk custom found in South Wales. The tradition entails, okay, you need to bear with me, go with me on this. It entails the use of an eponymous hobby horse, which is made from a horse's skull, mounted on a pole, and carried by an individual hidden under a sackcloth.
I'm trying to imagine this.
It sounds pretty scary.
Yeah.
So a group of singers would go house to house with this Mary Lloyd and try to gain entry by taking part in a verbal singing contest.
But why would you let them into your house?
I would not. I would simply not open the door.
It's almost like trick or treating, but not.
I know.
But like, what do you get at? Like, yeah, what's the treat?
It's like horror show arts and crafts, you know.
No.
So that's all I've got in terms of what people do for New Year's Eve. I thought it's pretty interesting. I didn't know about any of this until I did the research.
No, it's funny, isn't it? Because we think New Year's Eve is just that strike at midnight, as you say, the fireworks. That's it. But actually, there are these little traditions and pockets of the UK that do their own quirky celebrations that you wouldn't necessarily know about.
Yeah, and I think obviously fireworks is something that was an import, right? I guess now I actually understand why it's all fire based. It's either going to be fire or water, isn't it? Okay, so we hope you enjoyed that little episode on the more traditional festivals celebrated in the UK, and come back next week. We're going to talk about some lesser known traditions. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Subscribe, rate and review on your favourite podcast platform, and follow us on Instagram at Culturally Speaking Podcast. You can also check out our website culturallyspeaking.co.uk for a transcript of this episode. Share your stories or your show ideas with us by sending us an email at theculturallyspeaking@gmail.com.